Okay, peeps, hello. This is lesson 2, grade 11, where we will, I've given you, we started a brief history of South Africa and where South African theatre and how it was developing from the beginning of what is known as South Africa today. So we stopped at the 1950s yesterday. These are um, all of this is available in your textbooks. All right, so I'm going to refer you to page 123. Now, remember, the history and what happened to theatre during the history of South Africa will form part of the documentary assignment that you guys need to make, right? Where each one of you, there's 4 of you, will choose a period in or during the history of South Africa as a country, and you will deal with that form or shape of theatre that was happening during the time, and just perform a little example for me. You guys don't need costumes, you can use props, whatever. But I want to see a little, I don't know, there's 4 of you, so I need to see about a 4-minute video eventually. All right, so just keep working at your minds, and as a group, keep working on that. All right, the activity is put out very clearly in your textbooks on page 120, documenting South Africa theatre history. All right, so we got to the 1950s yesterday. On page 123, you will see this picture, and then underneath that picture, it says, in the 1950s, the seeds of apartheid were sown, and the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act, the Immorality Amendment Act, the Group Areas Act, the Bantu Education Act, the Pass Laws, and the Native Resettlement Act created the framework for the separate and oppression, or the separation and oppression, which would follow. All right, so in the 1950s, laws were passed that really, really separated certain groups from other groups, and we all know what what that involved. Now, the last act paved the way for the forced removals of people from Sophia Town and District 6. So as you guys can see, the 1950s, it was rife with injustice and people being treated very, very unfairly. The first clear signs of resistance, okay, resistance culture, it was actually known as, were seen in the adoption of the Freedom Charter in 1955 in Kliptown. Right now, with the urbanization, many traditional performance forms were adapted or evolved into new forms. Once again, I refer you to the term hybrid theatre, because that is what theatre in South Africa has developed as. All right, so adapted or evolved into new forms with some strong American influences. This was a period of cross-cultural collaborations. All right, then we get the 1960s. The year 1960 was a watershed for South Africa, with the resistance in Sharpeville leading to the killing of 69 people by police. All right, this was a really, really sad, angry, and unfortunately very violent time of our history. All right. A state of emergency was declared, and the ANC and the PAC were banned. The following year, that would be 1961, saw South Africa declare itself a republic. Right, so the Republic of South Africa only came into existence in 1961, meaning that now we could make our own laws and not be held accountable by the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth being a group of countries largely, how should we say, put together by the British Empire. And South Africa used to be part of the Commonwealth, but it was during that time that we removed ourselves from the Commonwealth, because obviously the British Empire or the Commonwealth did not they did not approve of all the prohibition laws and the separation laws and the apartheid laws that came into existence. All right. The ANC, very important, used to be a peaceful organization, but it was during this time that they abandoned their non-violent policy, setting up Umkhonto weSizwe, right? Umkhonto weSizwe was the military wing of the ANC, and these people who were suffering so many injustices were ready to take up arms against the ruling government, which was the National Party. All right, this is history, guys. Some of it is very boring, but most of it is very, very significant for you to understand the context of the types of plays and theatre that we will be studying when it comes to South African theatre. All right, it's important that you guys understand this. Mandela and other activists were sentenced to life imprisonment in 1963. The international press became more and more critical of South Africa's stance on race, and various measures were taken. One of these profoundly affected theatre, right? In 1963, the British equity boycott was announced. The boycott prevented South Africans from performing British plays and British performers from playing in South Africa. This forced South African theatre practitioners to create indigenous work to fill the gap. Okay, and this is where people like Gibson Kent and Athol Fugard, all right, became established. Right. This was a period of energetic state-subsidized theatre, with the 4 performing arts councils being created in 1962. State control over the content of productions became more intensive, and the Publications Control Board enforced strict censorship rules. Plays were banned for containing blasphemy or unpleasant subject matter, and in 1965, all racially mixed casts and audiences were banned. Playwrights like Fugard had to produce unicultural plays, and Kent, that's now Gibson Kent, and others had to rely solely on township audiences. So during the 1960s, you can see it. People started doing their own thing, right? Because all and most theatre was state subsidized, and as you now know, the state was a state of apartheid. All right. Then we get to the 1970s, which saw the growth of Black consciousness, a philosophy which aimed to reaffirm Black identity and dignity in the face of the apartheid onslaught. The response to the death of Steve Biko and the Soweto protests of 1976 indicated growing resistance in the face of oppression. Now, in this period, experimental plays, workshopped plays, and plays exploring African myth, legend, and culture became more and more popular. People were thinking about their heritage, where they come from, and how to maintain and take care of that heritage. Because there was so much oppression that said, no, you're not allowed to put on plays that deals with your identity. All right. Which is most unfortunate, but undercover, there was a lot of interesting things happening, and it was still happening. The state could not stop that, even though these productions did not receive money to put it on big stages. They workshopped plays that reflected and commented to a large extent on what was happening with these people, all right, at this stage. All right. Then we get the 1980s, which saw protest against apartheid becoming more and more radical, as one state of emergency followed another. All right. Theatre during the 1980s started certain theatre movements started aiming to mobilize the oppressed to fight their oppression, right? and that was at the order of the day. There were many anti-establishment and experimental practitioners, with some Afrikaans playwrights becoming openly anti-apartheid. All right. So it wasn't just your English-speaking playwrights like Fugard who became anti-apartheid. Some Afrikaans playwrights joined that movement as well and said, this is not on. It's not fair, and it's not serving the well-being of theatre in our country. All right. Cross-cultural workshop theatre, and this is a very important term. Workshop theatre. I mentioned it in yesterday's lesson. You will be uh, uh, um, exploring workshop theatre in South Africa to a larger extent later on in this term. But cross-cultural workshop theatre at places like the Market Theatre was exploring South African issues and characters. Theatre practitioners explored the ideas of experimental, international directors such as Grotowski, Brecht, Brock, and Artaud within a South African context. All right. Now, what this means is Grotowski is an international playwright and director. Bertolt Brecht, a very famous German playwright and director. Brook and Anton Artaud, right, were also international playwrights and directors. Now, what happened was that these cross-cultural experimental theatre groups started using international works and giving it a South African or African flavor, all right, or a South African context. We'll explore that deeper as we go. Right, now, lastly, behind the scenes negotiations led to the unbanning of the ANC in 1990 and the release of Nelson Mandela. While violence continued in the early 1990s, F.W. de Klerk, who was the state president at the time, and Mandela managed to forge agreements which led to the first democratic elections held in 1994. And I was very proud to be a first-time voter. I was 18 in 1994. I was in Israel on a kibbutz, and they gave us the day off so that I could go vote for the new democratic South Africa. So obviously that meant for this first time, everybody in South Africa had a voice. They could vote. All right. And obviously after that vote, the ANC came into power, all right, or took over government as it is today. Unfortunately, we have seen a lot of corruption, and like any other government, there's a lot of mistakes that they're making, né? But hey, we came a long way into establishing South Africa as a democracy. All right. Let me just check that I've covered everything. Now, Nelson Mandela, as the first president of a democratic South Africa, meant that this shift deeply affected theatre, with political protest and resistance theatre no longer seemed relevant, because, okay, everybody was free now, so they didn't have to use theatre as a protest tool or as a tool of resistance against the regime of apartheid. So what started happening was that some of these techniques were still used in community theatre to deal with socially relevant issues. Listen, just because South Africa became a democracy didn't mean that the social issues that had begun over generations of injustice and oppression, these social issues didn't go away overnight. All right, we still deal with it to these days. All right, we still deal with poverty, we still deal with racism, we still deal with oppression in certain communities, and we still deal with resistance in certain communities, and these are all real reflections that theatre still needed to employ. All right. However, the techniques were still used to deal with socially relevant. Okay, so the issues such as rape, incest, AIDS, education, housing. All right. Now, theatre of reconciliation had a place for a short time as playwrights tried to understand their hopes for this new society. Physical theatre or image theatre became more popular, a trend that is still continuing, and there was greater focus on interpreting classics from a South African perspective. Once again, you get international classics that has been rewritten or adapted to have a South African flavor. All right, and that's why hybrid theatre in South Africa is such a dominant force, quite frankly. All right. Culturally diverse productions became the norm, using a fusion of techniques and media, as well as multilingualism and strong physicality with a newfound confidence. All right, so it was a brand new day. All right, once democracy, brand new day for theatre in any case, once democracy stepped in. Democracy means equal rights for all, freedom of speech. It abolishes oppression, and it doesn't encourage injustice. All right, even though we still get it, um, it's not legal anymore. All right, so you will see on page 126 that the criteria, that's that. All right, the criteria that will be used to assess your documentary scene. Okay, I'm going to look at the group was able to depict clearly a period of South African history. I will look if the group was able to create a scene which indicated the kind of theatre found in this period. The group worked together successfully as a group. The group could create an entertaining final product. And then lastly, the group was able to use documentary techniques or conventions in their presentations. Okay. So that's it for lesson 2. I'm going to sign off and out. I shall speak to you soon. Keep working on that documentary of yours. Okay, love and leave you. That is the history of South African theatre within the history of South Africa. Okay, bye.